President Obama is looking to provide cash-strapped states a way to pay for unemployment insurance by increasing, you ready for this, businesses' payroll taxes. But does he not realize that higher business taxes will lead to more unemployment and so much more making nice with business? Here to discuss are my Freedom Fighters, Fox Business Network anchor, and my colleague, Lisa Rothmann, the Dollar Meltdown author, Charles Goyette, and radio host and Freedom Watch regular, Nancy Skinner. So, Nancy, let me get this straight. The other night, President Obama tells Bill O'Reilly on national television right before the Super Bowl, I didn't raise taxes. And the next day, he speaks to the Chamber of Commerce and says, I love business, and that's why I'm here. Within minutes of leaving that Chamber of Commerce speech and hours of the one-liner to O'Reilly, he says, we're going to raise taxes on businesses and give the money to the bankrupt states. What kind of sense does that make?
You know what? It's true. Politico said that, by and large, taxes are lower under the Obama administration. Check it out. But, Judge, this isn't a question of whether to tax or not. It's who to tax. The states are bankrupt. The recession drained their coffers of the federal uninsurance program. So here's what he's saying. The feds, in expanding the payroll taxes to who you cover from $7,000 to $15,000,
right,
the rate will actually go down, and the U.S. will be taking in no more. But the states will have a chance to replenish their coffers. And here's why the corporations should pay that. President Obama bailed out big business. He bailed out Wall Street. They're sitting on $2 trillion in cash. They're not spending. They're not hiring. Who should pay? Corporations or people like you and, well, the average working, not you, Judge, the average working person.
Corporations don't pay taxes. People do. Either shareholders of the corporations or customers of the corporations pay taxes. And some human being has to part with cash to pay a tax, no matter what kind of a name you put on it.
All taxes are paid by people. This is unbelievable, but think how Kafkaesque this whole thing is. The United States government, which is virtually insolvent, has to borrow money from people in China and Japan and so on to loan that money to the bankrupt states, and it wants out of the deal down the road. Oh, after the presidential election, by the way. After. It wants out of the deal down the road. And so they suggest raising taxes on what? On jobs. Well, what do you get when you raise taxes on jobs? Fewer jobs.
All right, Lori, the president is claiming the economy is better. We had somebody on earlier in the show from The Economist magazine, of all places, predicting a rosy future. But it's a jobless recovery. It is a jobless recovery. Isn't it basic economics 101? When you raise taxes, you increase unemployment.
Oh, 100%. This is maddening. I mean, you are basically the president talking to the Chamber of Commerce saying we're going to streamline the corporate tax code, and then all the while planning, it's part of the budget, right, that they're going to expand the pool of taxable wages. Small business growth, that is the engine of job growth in this country. Instead of worrying about how you're going to cover unemployment benefits, let's worry about how we're going to create jobs, because the unemployment problem, Judge, is so severe in this country that you're not going to have enough unemployment benefits to cover all those people unemployed.
Nancy, won't we create a dangerous precedent if the federal government starts bailing out states? I mean, basically, the president is doing this, correct me if I'm wrong, in order to transfer money to the states because their coffers have run dry. So if the president and the Congress, the federal government's going to bail out the states, where will it end? Will they pay Chris Christie's bills? Will they pay Jerry Brown's bills? Will they pay Andrew Cuomo's bills?
This is not a bailout of the states, Judge. Look, corporations take advantage and use the infrastructure of states. If you're saying that what the alternative is to start laying off teachers and beat cops and hospitals and roads and the public education system, that is going to ruin corporate business. Corporations use all those assets. They're sitting on $2 trillion in cash. They have an obligation as corporations chartered to serve society. You can't get all those services and expect not to have to hire or not to have to pay to create jobs in that community.
Okay,
That's
all right.
just
We're going to switch gears a little bit, because the president has promised, it's a very famous line from his State of the Union message, not to sign any bill containing wasteful, unconstitutional earmarks, although he doesn't call them wasteful or unconstitutional. But people are already warning that military projects historically funded by earmarks represent too great a share of the state's economies for federal lawmakers to ignore. Will that be what busts the earmark ban, Ms.
I do
Rothmann?
think so, Senior Judge. Absolutely. Here's the thing. unless you're going to redefine what an earmark is and really drill down on that loophole. Earmarks fund projects, military, National Guard, science, medicine, spending projects that, let's go back to our theme, generate job growth. And that's what this economy needs so desperately.
So you're suggesting that the earmarks can help the economy?
I am, actually. I'm sorry.
Charlie, that's all right. Don't be sorry. Charlie, does it matter if an earmark is to build a bridge to nowhere or to expand a military base? It's still an earmark, isn't it?
An earmark is an earmark, and of course Obama doesn't mind shifting the appropriation or the direction and specification of that spending to the executive branch as long as he's president. That's all they're going to do. It doesn't involve reducing spending itself. It only specifies where all this deficit spending is it goes. And so he's totally happy during his administration to take it away from Congress to the extent he can and leave it in the executive branch.
All right, Nancy, I'm going to grant you this one. I believe that you predicted that Republicans would not be able to resist the temptation to find a way around the earmark ban, and I grant you that. We're already willing to break it. So is giving money to Grumman Aircraft on Long Island or to something in Michigan that's defense-based, is that an earmark?
It is, and I think, Judge, you and I are going to have a kumbaya moment here.
Let's
I thought it would be shared by everyone on the show. Because, you know what, the defense budget is so much easier to defend a defense project than it is a bridge to nowhere. But your esteemed colleague there, it's funny that she says that it's okay to spend on defense projects because that's stimulus, but it's not okay to spend on teachers and beat cops because that's bad, evil government spending. Right. That's exactly what you said. So why is one spending good and one not?
Esteemed colleague, we only have about 30 seconds to reply.
Well,
Are you
I think
saying
the first thing I said was we need to clearly define what an earmark is. I think we need to take a step back.
Does it matter if they're a bridge to nowhere or if they're
what matters is if it's economically accretive, if it creates jobs, if it creates, again, if it's supportive to the economy, if it's going to add points, even if it's a tenth of a percentage point to GDP growth. And I think that's what you have to look at when you're determining whether or not it's earmarked. By the way, the earmarks as they stand and as they're currently defined, it's a drop in the bucket by way of paying down the debt and deficit.
All right, I'm going to have to leave it at there, giving Lori Rothmann the last word. Lori, Nancy, Charles, thanks very much for joining us. Coming up, the plain truth on limitless government spending and borrowing.